Dr. Sarah Chen walked through the empty halls of the Earth Diplomatic Station. Her footsteps echoed against the metal walls. She carried a thick folder in her hands. Inside were 300 pages of documents, charts, and proposals. All of this work was for one simple goal. She wanted humanity to join the galaxy. For 300 years, Earth had been alone. Not truly alone, because they knew about the other species out there. The Galactic Council had made contact long ago, but contact was all they allowed. Humans could talk to them through radio messages. They could receive some basic information about galactic civilization, but they could not leave their solar system. The Council called it the Quarantine Protocol. They said humans were not ready to join the galaxy. Earth was too violent, too unpredictable, too dangerous. The 12 species that ruled the galaxy had decided this together. They built invisible barriers around the solar system that stopped human ships from going faster than light speed. Without that technology, humans could never reach another star. Sarah had spent 20 years of her life trying to change this decision. She was Earth's best diplomat. She spoke 7 alien languages fluently. She understood the cultures and customs of each council species. If anyone could convince them to end the quarantine, it would be her. Today was her most important presentation ever. The council would review her latest proposal. This time, she had something different to offer. Earth had changed in the past century. There were no more wars between nations. Humans had built cities on Mars and mining stations throughout their solar system. Crime rates were at historic lows. Scientific cooperation had reached levels never seen before. Sarah entered the communication chamber. The room was dark except for 12 glowing screens. Each screen showed the face of a council member. These beings looked very different from humans. Some had scales. Others had fur. Some floated in tanks of liquid. Others seemed made of pure energy. But they all had one thing in common. They all believed humans were too dangerous for the galaxy. Dr. Chen, spoke Council Member HFY. His voice was like music, but cold music. We have reviewed your proposal. You present impressive statistics about human progress. Thank you, Council Member, Sarah replied. She kept her voice calm and respectful. As you can see, humanity has achieved remarkable peace and cooperation. We have terraformed Mars successfully. Our crime rates are lower than most council species. We have developed clean energy that could benefit the entire galaxy. Another council member spoke. This one looked like a giant insect with crystal wings. Your technological advancement is noted, Dr. Chen. But technology is not our concern. Then what is your concern? Sarah asked, though she already knew the answer. The insect being clicked its mandibles. Humans still compete against each other in physical contests. You call them sports. You create entertainment that glorifies conflict and war. Your ships have names like Warrior and Thunder and Victory. These are not the signs of a peaceful species. Sarah had heard this argument many times before. Respectfully, Council Member, competition and entertainment are not the same as violence. Humans compete because it makes us better. We tell stories about conflict because we want to understand it and avoid it in real life. Yet you continue these practices, said another council member. This one looked like a floating jellyfish made of light. 300 years of isolation. And you still have not outgrown these primitive behaviors. The debate continued for 2 hours. Sarah presented every argument she had prepared. She showed videos of human children from different planets playing together. She shared scientific discoveries that could help other species. She offered detailed plans for gradual integration with strict monitoring. It did not matter. The council had made their decision before she even spoke. The vote is unanimous, announced HFY. Humanity will remain under quarantine protocol. This decision is final. Sarah felt her heart sink, but she kept her expression neutral. I understand. Council members, May I ask, when we might petition again? In 50 years, you may submit another proposal. The jellyfish being replied. Perhaps by then, your species will show true maturity. The screens went dark. Sarah stood alone in the communication chamber. She had failed again. Earth would remain isolated for at least 50 more years, probably longer. But as she walked back through the empty halls, Sarah was not thinking about failure. She was thinking about something she had noticed during the council session. For the first time in 300 years, 2 council members had hesitated before voting. Just for a moment, but she had seen it. The unanimous decision was not as unanimous as it appeared. More importantly, Sarah had learned something new from their rejection. The council was not just keeping humans isolated anymore. They were afraid of something. The way they spoke about human achievements, the concern in their voices when they mentioned human technology and cooperation. This was not the attitude of teachers waiting for students to mature. This was fear. Back on Earth, Sarah sent her report to the Global Council. Every human leader would read her words within hours. The message was simple but important. The Galactic Council was no longer just ignoring humanity. They were actively working to keep humans contained. What the Council did not know was that humans had been preparing for this possibility for decades. Earth's best scientists and military leaders had developed plans for many different scenarios. If the galaxy would not accept humanity as equals, then humanity would need to find another way forward. The quarantine had taught humans many valuable lessons. They had learned to work together without outside help. They had learned to solve problems using only the resources in their solar system. Most importantly, they had learned patience. But patience had limits. And the Galactic Council was about to discover what happened when those limits were reached. Admiral Marcus Rodriguez stared at the message on his screen. He read it 3 times to make sure he understood correctly. The words were clear, but their meaning was so shocking that his brain refused to accept them at first. The Galactic Council was claiming the outer solar system. Everything beyond Mars now belonged to them. They called it the Galactic Commerce Expansion Initiative. The asteroid belt, the gas giant moons, the Kuiper belt, all of it would become Council mining territory. Humans could keep Earth, Mars, and Venus. The rest was no longer theirs. Admiral, said his aide, Commander Torres, all fleet commanders are requesting immediate conference. Set it up, Marcus replied. His voice was steady, but inside he was burning with anger. The Council was not just maintaining the quarantine anymore. They were stealing human territory. The conference room filled with holographic images of ship commanders throughout the solar system. Captain Zhang commanded the Mars Defense Fleet. Captain Okafor led the asteroid mining protection ships. Captain Silva controlled the outer system patrol vessels. All of them looked as angry as Marcus felt. They want our backyard, Captain Silva said bluntly. 300 years we've been building this system. Now they want to take it. The mining rights alone are worth trillions, added Captain Zhang. Every asteroid we've surveyed, every gas giant moon we've mapped, every ice comet we've catalogued. They want it all. Marcus pulled up a tactical display of the solar system. Red dots marked human settlements and installations. Blue dots showed the areas the Council wanted to claim. The blue covered almost 70% of human space. What's Earth's response? Asked Captain Okafor. Every nation is unified, Marcus answered. The Global Council met in emergency session. Their message is simple. Sol system sovereignty is not negotiable. The commanders nodded. For once, every human government agreed completely. Democrats, Republicans, Socialists, monarchists. None of that mattered now. This was about humanity's right to their home system. So what do we do when they come to take it? Captain Silva asked. Marcus had been thinking about that question for 6 hours. Earth's military leaders had wargamed this scenario many times. They had plans. But those plans had never seemed so real before. "We remind them that this is our home," Marcus said. "And humans defend their home." 2 weeks later, the Council enforcement fleet appeared at the edge of the solar system. Commander Veltar led 20 warships toward the asteroid belt. Council intelligence reported that humans had some military vessels, but nothing that could threaten a proper galactic fleet. Veltar was confident this would be a simple operation. Show overwhelming force, demand compliance, accept surrender. He had done this with 3 other rebellious species. It always ended the same way. But as his fleet moved deeper into the solar system, strange things began happening. His sensors detected movement in the asteroid belt. But when his ships focused on specific locations, they found nothing unusual. Just rocks and mining equipment. "Commander," reported his sensor officer, "I'm reading power signatures throughout the belt, much stronger than normal mining operations should produce." "Investigate," Veltar ordered. The investigation revealed that humans had been very busy during their 3 centuries of isolation. What looked like simple mining stations were actually sophisticated military installations. Asteroids that appeared to be natural rocks were hollowed out and filled with weapons. Communication relays disguised as research equipment connected every human facility in a vast network. The asteroid belt was not just a mining region. It was a fortress that stretched across millions of kilometers of space. When Veltar's fleet reached the belt, they found the entire human military waiting for them, not hiding behind planets or moons, but spread out in a defensive line that spanned from Ceres to Jupiter's orbit. Hundreds of ships, thousands of weapon platforms, millions of humans ready to fight for their home. Admiral Rodriguez opened a communication channel. His image appeared on Veltar's command screen. The human looked calm and professional, like he was conducting a routine inspection instead of facing an invasion fleet. "Commander Veltar," Rodriguez said politely, "you are entering sovereign human space without permission. Please state your intentions." Veltar was surprised by the human's respectful tone. Most species either begged for mercy or hurled threats when facing council fleets. This admiral spoke like an equal addressing another equal. "Admiral Rodriguez," Veltar replied carefully, "we are here, under council authority, to establish mining operations in this region. You will withdraw your forces and allow us to proceed." "I'm afraid that's not possible," Rodriguez answered. "This is human territory. If the council wishes to discuss resource-sharing agreements, we are happy to negotiate. But we will not allow unauthorized military forces in our space." Veltar felt a chill of worry. The human was not acting like a member of a quarantined species. He was acting like the representative of an independent nation. Worse, his fleet positioning suggested that humans knew exactly how to fight in 3-dimensional space battles. "Admiral," Veltar said slowly, "you are vastly outnumbered. Your technology is centuries behind council standards. Withdraw now, and no harm will come to your people." Rodriguez smiled. It was not a threatening smile, but it was not afraid either. "Commander, you are correct that we are outnumbered. But you are wrong about our technology. We've had 300 years to develop new ideas, and we've had excellent motivation to make them work." The standoff continued for 6 days. During that time, Veltar watched human behavior that confused him completely. Instead of panic or despair, humans throughout the system worked with incredible coordination. Supply ships moved efficiently between installations. Communication traffic increased dramatically as humans shared information and resources. Civilian vessels converted into support craft overnight. It was like watching a single organism with millions of parts all working toward the same goal. On the 7th day, the Council sent new orders. Demonstrate galactic authority. Disable human military assets. Use whatever force necessary. Veltar chose the smallest human installation to attack first. It was just a single asteroid with a few dozen crew members. An easy target that would show humans the futility of resistance. The asteroid exploded into fragments when Council weapons hit it. For a moment, Veltar thought the demonstration had worked. Then, his entire fleet was under attack. Commander Veltar had never seen weapons like these before. The projectiles came from every direction at once, moving faster than anything in his tactical database. His ship's shields were designed to deflect energy beams and plasma bolts. They were useless against solid metal, moving at nearly the speed of light. Kinetic weapons, his science officer reported with shock. They're firing physical projectiles at relativistic velocities. The first Council ship to die was the destroyer Knight's Edge. A chunk of iron no bigger than a fist punched through its hull, from bow to stern. The ship broke apart in seconds. 23 crew members died instantly. Veltar's fleet scattered, trying to find cover behind asteroids. But the asteroids themselves were firing at them. What had looked like mining equipment were actually rail guns. Magnetic accelerators that could launch projectiles at incredible speeds. How is this possible? Veltar demanded. They're a quarantined species. They don't have this technology. His tactical officer was analyzing the weapons fire. Sir, these systems are crude, but effective. Instead of complex energy shields and plasma weapons, they've focused entirely on kinetic force. Maximum destructive power with minimum technological complexity. It was brilliant in its simplicity. While the Council had spent centuries perfecting exotic energy technologies, humans had taken basic physics and pushed it to its absolute limits. They couldn't create force fields or faster-than-light weapons, so they had built guns that fired bullets at nearly light speed instead. The battle lasted 17 minutes. When it ended, 8 Council ships were destroyed, and 4 more were crippled. Veltar's own command vessel had lost main power, and life support was failing. He prepared to broadcast surrender terms, expecting human demands for unconditional capitulation. What came instead shocked him more than the weapons had. Commander Veltar, came Admiral Rodriguez's voice. We are dispatching medical ships to assist your wounded. Our rescue teams will help evacuate damaged vessels. When you are ready to discuss terms, we will be waiting. Veltar stared at his communication screen in disbelief. The humans had just destroyed most of his fleet, and now they were offering medical aid to the survivors. In his 50 years of military service, he had never encountered anything like this. Admiral Rodriguez, Veltar replied weakly. You offer aid to your enemies? You're not our enemies, Commander. You're soldiers following orders. Your wounded need help, and we can provide it. War doesn't mean we stop being civilized beings. Over the next few hours, Veltar watched human behavior that defied every model the Council had created about their species. Human medical ships arrived quickly and began treating Council casualties without any hesitation. Their doctors worked just as hard to save alien lives as human ones. Human engineers helped repair damaged Council vessels. They shared food, water, and medical supplies freely. When Council survivors asked why they were being treated so well, humans seemed genuinely confused by the question. Because you need help, was the typical response. Why wouldn't we help? Dr. Elena Vasquez, Chief Medical Officer of the human hospital ship Mercy, treated Veltar's injuries personally. As she worked, they talked. Your species confuses me, Doctor, Veltar admitted. You fight with incredible skill and ferocity. Then you show mercy to those who attacked you. How do you reconcile these opposing behaviors? Elena paused in her work and looked at him thoughtfully. They're not opposing behaviors, Commander. We fight to protect what we care about. We show mercy because that's also part of protecting what we care about. If we become monsters to defeat monsters, then we've lost what made us worth protecting in the first place. Veltar had studied human culture during his approach to Sol System. Council files described humans as moderately intelligent, physically weak, technologically adequate. Nothing in those files had prepared him for what he actually encountered. These beings had spent 3 centuries in isolation. But instead of becoming weak or dependent, they had grown stronger. They had learned to work together with a coordination that seemed almost telepathic. They had developed technologies that were different from Council standards but no less effective. Most disturbing of all, they had maintained their compassion even while building the most efficient military force Veltar had ever encountered. They were not conquerors or destroyers. They were protectors who were very, very good at their job. Dr. Vasquez, Veltar said as she finished treating his wounds. May I ask you something? Of course. What do humans want from the galaxy? What is your goal in all this? Elena smiled. We want to be part of it. We want to trade with other species, share knowledge, explore together, learn from each other. We want what every intelligent species wants: friends, growth, discovery. But you are willing to fight for it. We're willing to fight to protect our right to exist and grow. That's not the same thing as fighting to dominate others. Veltar was beginning to understand the fundamental error in Council thinking about humans. They had assumed that a species capable of great violence must be naturally aggressive and dangerous. But humans were not naturally aggressive. They were naturally protective. They fought when threatened, but they preferred to cooperate when possible. 3 days after the battle, Veltar sat in Admiral Rodriguez's office aboard the human command ship, Defiance. The room was simple and functional, with pictures of Earth and Mars on the walls. No trophies of war or symbols of dominance, just images of home. Commander, Rodriguez said quietly, I need to ask you something important. When you return to Council space, what will you report? Veltar had been dreading this question. His report would determine how the Council responded to this defeat. He could call it a fluke, a lucky victory that humans could never repeat. Or he could tell the truth. I will report that humans are not what the Council believes them to be, Veltar said finally. You are not primitive. You are not weak. And you are certainly not technologically inadequate. Will that prevent another attack? I don't know, Veltar answered honestly. The Council does not like to admit when they are wrong. They may escalate instead of reconsidering. Rodriguez nodded grimly. Then, we'll be ready for that too. As Veltar prepared to leave Sol System with the survivors of his fleet, he carried with him something the Council had not expected: respect for the human species. These beings had not just defeated a Council force. They had done it while maintaining their principles and showing mercy to their enemies. For the first time in his career, Commander Veltar was going to file a report that contradicted official Council policy, because the truth was more important than maintaining comfortable illusions. Humans were not the primitive, dangerous species the Council feared. They were something far more threatening to the established galactic order. They were living proof that there was a better way to build a civilization. News of the Sol System incident spread through galactic communication networks faster than the Council could stop it. A quarantined species had not only defeated a Council enforcement fleet, but had treated their enemies with honor and mercy afterward. For civilizations that had lived under Council rule for thousands of years, it was like watching the impossible happen. The Vrex Collective heard the news first. They were insectoid traders who had always resented Council economic restrictions. For centuries, they had been forced to sell their goods at prices set by Council regulations and buy resources through Council-approved channels only. Now, they learned that somewhere in the galaxy, a species had said no to the Council and made it stick. Hive speaker Kexra called an emergency meeting of the collective leadership. The conversation was conducted in rapid clicking sounds that would have been incomprehensible to most species. Is the information verified? Kexra asked. 3 independent sources confirm it, replied another Vrex leader. 20 Council ships entered the Sol System. Only 7 returned functional. The humans offered medical aid to Council survivors. Medical aid to enemies, Kexra mused. This behavior is unprecedented in our databases. Should we make contact? The question hung in the air like the scent of fresh nectar. Making unauthorized contact with humans would be a direct violation of Council law. But the Vrex had been following Council law for so long that they had almost forgotten what freedom felt like. Prepare a small trade mission, Kexra decided. We will test Council response to unauthorized contact. The Vrex trade ship arrived at the edge of Sol system 3 weeks later. They expected to find a military fortress bristling with weapons and suspicious guards. Instead, they were greeted by Dr. Sarah Chen aboard a diplomatic vessel called the Bridge Builder. Welcome to Sol System, Dr. Chen said in perfectly accented Vrex clicking language. We've been hoping someone would come to visit. Kexra was amazed. Not only did this human speak Vrex fluently, but she had used the formal greeting reserved for honored trade partners. Somehow, humans had learned Vrex culture well enough to show proper respect. Dr. Chen, Kexra replied carefully. We come seeking information about recent events. The galaxy has heard many stories. All probably true, Dr. Chen smiled. We defended our home when attacked. Would you like to see what we've built here? The tour of human space that followed changed Kexra's understanding of what was possible. Instead of the primitive settlements she expected, Kexra found a thriving civilization that had turned isolation into strength. Mars was covered with domed cities that gleamed like jewels against the red landscape. The asteroid belt buzzed with activity as mining ships and construction vessels built new installations. The outer system contained research stations that were studying everything from gas giant atmospheric dynamics to ice comet compositions. But what impressed Kexra most was something she couldn't see: the way humans worked together. Every decision seemed to be made by consensus rather than decree. Individuals chose their roles based on ability and interest rather than having assignments imposed from above. It was organized chaos that somehow produced remarkable results. How do you maintain order without central authority? Kexra asked during their meeting on the human station, called Harmony. We don't maintain order, Dr. Chen explained. We create cooperation. When everyone benefits from working together, you don't need to force them to do it. Within days of the Vrex visit, other species began arriving in Sol system. The ethereal communion sent a research vessel, crewed by energy beings who wanted to study human neural patterns. The hegemony dispatched a small diplomatic mission to assess human military capabilities. Even the reclusive stone speakers sent representatives to meet these unusual mammals. Each visiting delegation found the same thing: humans who were eager to trade, share knowledge, and build relationships. But more than that, they found a species that had developed something the Council had worked for millennia to prevent: the ability to cooperate voluntarily without coercion. Whisper of Stars, the youngest member of the ethereal communion, spent 2 months studying human society. Her report to the Council was devastating in its implications. They have achieved functional anarchic cooperation. No single authority controls their decisions, yet they act with unity when threatened. Their technology develops along multiple parallel paths instead of following a single approved direction. Their economic system allows individuals to pursue personal benefit while contributing to collective welfare. The report continued for hundreds of pages, documenting human achievements that should have been impossible according to Council social theory. Humans had built a civilization that was both highly organized and completely free. The Council faced a choice they had never confronted before. For thousands of years, their authority had been absolute. Species either submitted to Council rule or were destroyed. But humans had proven that there was a third option. Quote, successful resistance, followed by voluntary cooperation with other species. This was more than a military defeat. It was proof that Council philosophy was wrong. Intelligent species could govern themselves. They could cooperate without coercion. They could develop advanced technology without central planning. The implications terrified the Council leadership. If other species learned what humans had accomplished, the entire galactic order could collapse. Rebellions might break out everywhere. The careful hierarchy that maintained peace and stability could crumble into chaos. Council Member HFY called for an emergency session to address the Sol system crisis. All 12 member species participated in the debate that followed. The situation is simple, HFY declared. Humans have contaminated galactic thinking with dangerous ideas. If we allow this to continue, every species will demand independence and self-governance. Perhaps that would not be catastrophic, suggested Council Member Thys of the Stone Speakers. Human achievements suggest that voluntary cooperation may be more effective than imposed order. The suggestion caused an uproar among other council members. The possibility that their entire governmental philosophy was wrong was too threatening to consider seriously. Impossible, declared Council Member Volkar of the Hegemony. Without central authority, civilization collapses into war and chaos. Humans are an anomaly that proves nothing. But privately, many council members were beginning to have doubts. Reports from their species' contact with humans all told the same story. These beings had built something remarkable during their centuries of isolation. Their technology was advancing rapidly. Their society was stable and productive. Their military was formidable, but restrained. Most disturbing of all, humans seemed genuinely happy. Surveys of human populations showed satisfaction levels that exceeded those of most council species. People who were free to choose their own paths appeared to be more fulfilled than those who followed prescribed roles. The council's final decision was predictable but desperate. If humans could not be controlled through normal diplomatic means, they would face the full military might of galactic civilization. The Grand Fleet would assemble, 3,000 ships, representing 12 species united in purpose. This would not be a police action or a demonstration of authority. This would be a war of extermination. If humans could not be controlled, they would be eliminated before their dangerous ideas could spread further. But as the Council prepared for war, they failed to notice something important happening throughout the galaxy. Species that had contacted humans were beginning to change. Trade agreements developed along human models. Research projects started using human-style voluntary cooperation. Political movements emerged demanding greater individual freedom. The Grand Fleet would arrive at Sol System to find not just humans waiting for them, but representatives from dozens of species who had chosen cooperation over coercion. The galaxy was already changing, and the Council was about to discover that some changes could not be stopped by force. Grand Admiral Thexmore had commanded fleets for over 40 years, but he had never led an armada like this one. 3,000 ships from 12 different species stretched across space in a formation that could be seen from light years away. This was not just a military force. It was a statement. The Council would tolerate no further challenges to galactic order. The target was clear. Eliminate human civilization completely. Make Sol System an example that would prevent any other species from attempting rebellion. Thexmore had his orders, and he intended to follow them perfectly. But when the Grand Fleet arrived at Sol System, Thexmore found something he had not expected. Instead of desperate defensive positions or last-minute evacuation attempts, he saw what appeared to be a celebration. Human ships filled the space between Mars and Earth. Not just military vessels, but traders, explorers, researchers, even civilian pleasure craft. It looked like the entire human civilization had gathered to welcome visitors rather than prepare for war. "Admiral," reported his tactical officer with confusion, "I'm reading over 10,000 human vessels in the inner system, but their formation makes no strategic sense. They're spread out in what appears to be festival configurations." Thexmore studied the sensor data carefully. The humans were not hiding behind fortifications or preparing obvious defensive positions. Instead, they seemed to be displaying their entire civilization for the Grand Fleet to observe. A communication request came from the human fleet. Admiral Rodriguez appeared on Thexmore's screen, looking as calm and professional as ever. "Grand Admiral Thexmore," Rodriguez said respectfully, "welcome to Sol System. We've prepared something we'd like to show you." Please observe the asteroid designated Series 7. Thexmore turned his sensors toward the indicated asteroid. It was roughly 2 kilometers in diameter, appearing to be a standard rocky planetoid. Then, something extraordinary happened. The asteroid erupted in cascades of light and energy. But this was not destruction. It was creation. In the span of minutes, automated systems transformed the entire asteroid into a functional shipyard. Manufacturing facilities unfolded like flowers blooming. Defensive weapons emerged from hidden compartments. Docking bays opened to reveal completed spacecraft, ready for launch. Terraforming technology, adapted for rapid construction. Dr. Chen's voice joined the communication. Humanity's solution to logistical warfare. We don't need supply lines, Admiral. We build what we need, where we need it. Across the solar system, thousands of asteroids began the same transformation process. Each became a fortress, a factory, a research station, a spaceport. The humans had not built a defensive line. They had built a civilization that could relocate and rebuild faster than any attacking force could destroy it. Thexmore watched in fascination and growing horror as the scale of human preparation became clear. They had spent 3 centuries turning every piece of space debris into a potential military asset. The asteroid belt was not just defended. It was one vast, distributed military-industrial complex that could rebuild itself continuously. But the demonstration was not finished. Human ships throughout the system began linking together physically and electronically. Individual vessels shared power, computational resources, and structural components. The entire fleet started functioning as a single, adaptive organism. This is how humans fight, Admiral Rodriguez explained calmly. We don't just use our tools, we become them. We adapt. We cooperate. We overcome. And right now, we're offering the galaxy a choice. Thexmore realized that the Grand Fleet was not facing a traditional military force. Humans had created something entirely new. A civilization that was simultaneously highly advanced and completely adaptable. They could not be conquered because they could rebuild faster than they could be destroyed. They could not be contained because they had already learned to thrive in isolation. What choice? Thexmore asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. Join us in building a different kind of galactic community, Doctor, Chen replied. One based on voluntary cooperation instead of imposed authority. One where species work together because they choose to, not because they have to. And if we refuse, then you return home, and we continue building our community with those who want to participate, Rodriguez answered simply. We won't force anyone to join us. That would make us no different from the Council. The choice was more complex than Thexmore had expected. He could attack and probably win, but at enormous cost. Human defensive preparations would make any victory extremely expensive. Worse, destroying human civilization would eliminate the very thing that made them dangerous. Their ideas about cooperation and freedom. But if he did not attack, he would be tacitly accepting that humans had the right to exist as equals rather than subjects. That would undermine the entire foundation of Council authority. As Thexmore considered his options, something unprecedented began happening. Ships from his own fleet started requesting permission to visit human installations. Crew members who had spent their lives following orders were suddenly curious about a civilization built on choice rather than command. Captain Veltara of the Vrex contingent was the first to break formation. Her ship approached the human diplomatic vessel and requested a cultural exchange meeting. Within hours, other captains followed her example. Admiral, reported Thexmore's communications officer. We're receiving requests from crews throughout the fleet. They want to examine human technology and social systems. Thexmore understood what was happening. The Grand Fleet had come to destroy human civilization. But human civilization was destroying the Grand Fleet instead. Not through weapons, but through the simple power of example. His own officers were beginning to ask questions they had never asked before. Why did they follow orders without question? Why did the council make all decisions for their species? What would happen if they were free to choose their own paths? These questions were more dangerous to council authority than any weapon humans possessed. Over the following weeks, the Grand Fleet effectively dissolved as individual ships and crews made their own decisions about what to do. Some returned to council space to report the situation. Others requested asylum in Sol System. Many simply left to explore the galaxy independently, for the first time in their lives. Thexmore himself faced the most difficult choice of his career. He could return to the council and report that humans were too strong to defeat militarily. Or he could stay and help build the new kind of galactic community that humans offered. In the end, the choice was simple. Thexmore had seen what voluntary cooperation could accomplish. He had watched species work together without coercion or threat. He had observed the happiness that came from being free to choose one's own path. The Council's authority did not collapse dramatically. It simply became irrelevant, as more and more species chose cooperation over control. When enough beings decided that freedom was better than security, the old hierarchy found itself ruling empty space. 5 years later, former Grand Admiral Thexmore served as a liaison between human space and the dozens of species that had chosen to join the new galactic community. The work was challenging but rewarding. Building consensus among free beings was much more difficult than simply following orders, but the results were far superior. Humanity had done more than win a war. They had proven that there was another way to organize intelligent life among the stars. The galaxy would never be the same, and most beings agreed that this was a very good thing. The quarantine had ended not through conquest or negotiation, but through the simple demonstration that cooperation, freely chosen, was more powerful than authority forcibly imposed, and the universe was better for it.